Hello, everybody. Thanks once again for joining us. This is our second episode of Demand the Truth here on 990WBOB.com. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Alongside, as always, Kevin LaPrade, I am Will Turbit. And just to begin right now, we're going to go over a little bit about what we went over last week and just recap what that is. We're going to finish all this up today, and then we're going to probably open up for some calls in the last segment. So last week we were talking about, not just talking about, I was actually documenting how we got here, how a bunch of robber barons, out of their own mouths, admit that they have tried to destroy America. Now, I read you quotes and excerpts from their own books, like Edward Bernays, his book Propaganda, David Rockefeller's memoirs, The Anglo-American Establishment by Carroll Quigley, and I documented in the first episode, you can go back and look at 990WBOB.com under past casts, how this group financed both sides of World War I to create a League of Nations, which was unsuccessful, and then they went about financing Hitler and both sides of World War II, and then met secretly in the White House with the State Department to plan the war and the post-World War. And then they created the United Nations, their framework for this new world order, global government. This is their words, not my words, remember. And this is one quote that I read you from David Rockefeller's memoirs last week. It's on page 405 in a chapter entitled Proud Internationalists. And this is, like I said last week, one of the richest families in American history, the richest family in American history. Even the History Channel says they're the most hated and evil family in American history. And I'm going to give you this quote one more time, okay? He says, "Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and I as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will." Then he says, "If that's the charge, I stand guilty and I'm proud of it." So he openly admits in his autobiography that he wants to destroy America. And I also ended the show off last week. Kevin and I were talking about the Bilderberg Group, which is an annual meeting of less than 200 of the world's power elite, central bankers, heads of multinational conglomerates, big business owners, presidents, royalty. And it's another admitted thing in page 411 of his memoirs. Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands convened the first conference in May 1954 at the urging of Joseph Redinger. So this group every year meets in secret and have plotted to take over the world, and the European Union was also their birthchild, at the urging of Joseph Redinger. Well, who's Joseph Redinger? Well, he's a Nazi. So every year, like I told you, two Nazis, the Rockefellers and the world's elite, get together and they plan out how they want things to change for us. Well, guess what? This first part of this broadcast is going to be like, we're going to start changing stuff for them. The first step is we're going to get educated. And once we get educated, after this show, we're going to be finding a whole bunch of peaceful ways to take action and change this world for the better. Okay? So, and then this one more quote, too. It says, 2 years after our first report, we proposed the construction of a World Trade Center that would firmly establish Lower Manhattan as the world's trade and financial center. So not only the World Trade Centers, but the United Nations were on land created by the Rockefellers. Same thing, General Electric, one of the same 5 to 6 corporations that don't pay their own taxes and also financed the Hitler and the Nazi regime during World War II. It's on 30 Rockefeller Plaza. So I'm going to give you, and I was talking about how that people were being politically controlled, but also one of the aspects I kind of delved into was somebody I brought up earlier, that was Edward Bernays. And anybody that doesn't know, Edward Bernays, he was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And what he understood was human psychology and also mass human psychology. And what he did is he basically got women to start smoking cigarettes, made us eat bacon with eggs, took women's skirts that were ankle level and took them up to their thighs. So he completely changed America culture, and those are only a couple of
You
brief...
got to remember, Will, this was at a time when women did not smoke cigarettes. So getting women to smoke cigarettes in this time was incredibly...
You're absolutely right, yeah. That was the thing. It was a taboo for women to smoke at the time. It was during the 1920s, and the cigarette companies came to Bernays and were like, all right, we're missing out on half of our product right here. Half of our people aren't smoking cigarettes, and if they were, we'd be getting a whole bunch more profits. So Bernays consulted with some psychoanalysts and found out what it meant to the woman's psychology, what that represented. And what he did is he took a bunch of suffragettes, people that were protesting for women to get the right to vote in 1920, and at the Macy's Day Parade, he had them all light up cigarettes at the end, and he had his editor at the New York Times call them torches of liberty, a beautiful piece of propaganda. And like I told you, these people put their editors in the heads of all these major newspapers, the Times, Newsweek, all that stuff. So we're going to get back in. So here's a quote from Edward Bernays. I read part of it last week. These are the people that are running the world, and these are what these people think of you. These people have declared war against you. Me, I can't just sit here and let people declare war on me. Listen, it's a little longer quote, but it's very interesting. Listen to what he says. He says, "The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in a democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds molded, our tastes formed, and our ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of. This is a logical result in the way which our democratic society is organized. Vast numbers of human beings must cooperate in this manner if they are to live together as a smoothly functioning society. In almost every aspect of our lives, whether in the sphere of politics or business, in our social conduct or our ethical thinking, we are dominated by a relatively small number of persons who understand the mental processes and social patterns of the masses. It is they who pull the wires to control the public mind." And like I said, that's a quote from Edward Bernays' Propaganda, the book Propaganda. Okay, and last week I kind of took it all the way back about how this group dominated all forms of information, and how I will show you right now, Kevin and I will show you how they still do it to this day. So like I said last week, in the book Anglo-American Establishment by Carroll Quigley, who's no slouch, he was a mentor of Bill Clinton, Princeton, Harvard, Georgetown, guy's legit. And he has a book, Anglo-American Establishment, as well as Tragedy and Hope, and he documents the writing of these individuals and the wills and the quotes and everything. So he was saying how about the turn of the century, how they had, in England, taken up, because that's where this group started, they had bought up the Times and the other newspapers, put their people as heads of Oxford, All Souls, and Balliol, the main colleges, as well as they created the Encyclopedia Britannica. So like I was saying last week, every form of knowledge you could possibly digest at that time was directly by those people. Okay, and then fast forward a little bit to 1925, it's entered into the congressional record that J.P. Morgan asked how many newspapers he would have to buy to have control of what Americans thought daily, and the answer was anywhere from 25 to 33%. Okay, so everything we've ever watched on TV is run by 5 or 6 megacorporations. I just only alluded to one of them earlier, General Electric, who funded the Nazis. The Nazis could not have had fighter planes, could not have had the machinery they had without General Electric. Okay, that's an American corporation. So these corporations were built, and these TV stations were built on psychological warfare. Last week I read a quote of David Rockefeller from his book Memoirs saying about his experience in the Army, saying, "That's where I met William Paley. He was the head of the psychological warfare department who would go on to create CBS." So it just shows you where these people are coming from. So now I'm going to take it into modern day times, okay? So mind control really started heavily in the 50s and the 70s. And now you guys would say, mind control? The government wouldn't do mind control. You're crazy. Well, let's start with one program. Just one program for today, because I seem to always talk over my time. But that one is going to be MK Ultra. Now, to declassify government documents, actually the government program, we only have a small amount of the documents because they were mostly destroyed. But MK Ultra, and not only don't take my word for it, I implore you right now to Google MK Ultra. You can actually look at the few remaining documents there, and you can go on YouTube and check out the church committee hearings about this, and you can see the CIA getting grilled here. This is all out in the open. Nothing I'm saying cannot be verified 100% by all of you guys, and that's what you guys are doing right now, hopefully, is thinking and checking these claims for yourself. So the MK Ultra program was also known as the CIA's mind control program, and it illegally experimented on human subjects. Our tax money is paying for the illegal experimentation upon us. Okay? This ran from the 50s to the 70s, and some people said it got shut down. However, who knows? They probably just moved it to another black op or changed the name. But during these 20 or so years, there were many different things that were used to control people. Drugs, chemicals, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, verbal and sexual abuse, as well as torture on innocent human civilians, okay? And then they would do things like they would strap somebody to a bed and they would put a helmet on and they would shock them over and over again and repeat the same message in their head over and over and over again for minutes, for hours, for days, for weeks, for months, literally for months. Imagine sitting there with the same phrase, being electroshocked and sexually assaulted. This is what our government is doing to us. That's why I get so mad. Like, oh my God, these people are watching sports and they're yelling, oh my God, the football team, oh, the Cowboys, the Redskins, yeah. But nobody cares that we're being tortured and innocent children are being shipped off. It is crazy. But that's because of this mind control that I'm talking right now. Myself too. And I didn't know about any of this stuff. And the problem is, you can't do anything until you know something's going on. So my job here is to let you know, hey guys, there's something going on. We have to do something about it, okay? So this was no small project, MK Ultra, either. This was in over 80 institutions, 44 universities. So 44 American and Canadian universities took part in this. And some people were witting and others weren't. Some people knew that it was the CIA. Sometimes the CIA would use front groups to try to get in. But it wasn't just universities, it was hospitals, prisons, and also pharmaceutical companies. So even the Supreme Court said, and this is a quote, you can take this, you can go on the Supreme Court website or the Congressional Record. It says, the Supreme Court said, MK Ultra was concerned with the research and development of chemical, biological, and radiological materials capable of employment in clandestine operations to control human behavior. The program consisted of 149 sub-projects where the agency contracted out to various other universities, research foundations, and similar institutions. At least 80 institutions and 185 private researchers participated. Because the agency funded MK Ultra indirectly, many of the participating individuals were unaware that they were dealing with the agency. Like I said, don't take any of my word for this. You can see the Senate hearings, the Church Committee hearings about this. And what this takes back to it, if you take a look, where did all this come from, at least on the CIA aspect? It came from Operation Paperclip. And if anybody's watched Captain America, we're going to go to break right now. We're going to talk about Captain America and Operation Paperclip on the other side. So stay tuned, 990WBOB.com. My name is Will Turbid. I'm your host. And also alongside me is Kevin Laprade. Follow him on Twitter at InfoWarriorForGod, 990WBOB.com.
Hosted by senior editor Kevin Ader. Each week, Kevin talks to the interesting, the powerful, and the influencers in your community. Forget the slant, get the straight word directly from the source. The Cobblestone Press. It's
Your
the
bed
snooze.
reminds me of the Gorillas.
From CEOs
I'm sorry?
to celebrities,
Your bed
from
reminds me
mayors
of
to
the
moms,
Gorillas.
the Cobblestone Press is
My
your
what?
weekly
The
roundup
bed
of
that
today's
you
biggest
use
issues.
reminds me
Oh,
of
the
the
bed.
Gorillas.
Press, live
That's-
every
that
Monday.
sounds-
That's the terminology for the song.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm new to this, all right? Can't be throwing jargon at me. I don't know any of this crap.
And
Yeah, so I told him about a bog. The bog, he's like, bog? Oh, she may not know about video.
oh, the bed, the music bed.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm learning. This is a learning experience for me.
Super easy to book your next trip. Travel with convenience.
Do you ever
Choose
have
from
any
thousands of
questions,
hotels
comments, or
around the
concerns?
globe at
Let me know.
delegatetravel.com.
I will, for sure.
With the airline or flight to depart
I'm
when
here to
you
help,
will. We have the
guys.
easiest possible
Get
booking
better.
system. Get the
Whatever.
best deals wherever
Yeah.
you go
If you have any
at
special
delegatetravel.com.
requests or
Book
concerns
your
or
dream holiday right now, all on one site, delegatetravel.com. 8 Bike Minutes. Head on over to
I do it for Scott Rotano as well. Like, he doesn't like have a lot to say at the end of his segment. I usually just put on a song for him. That way it ends the show.
So when you're telling me to break, right? How much time do I have until that break? Or immediately?
No, 3.
I mean, normally what we do is like I come up and I'm like, 1 minute break. That way you have like a minute.
So that
ahead.
was 1 minute right there. I missed the beginning of it.
That one I did too. But if I give you like a break signal, I'll usually do it probably 30 seconds before the 15.
Okay.
I usually do it probably 30 seconds before the actual break.
Feel free to throw things at me too if I'm getting too involved in this in the laptop.
Well, 30 seconds before the break is when I usually do it. That way you can finish what you're saying.
Thank you. I have it coming up.
I can or not. Who made?
That's coming up.
Alright, good. Because I wanted to come in and say, some people would argue that the Rockefellers are not the richest, the Rothschilds. There were
Oh no,
500
that's why I said
trillion.
American family. The Rothschilds are way more. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Read about upcoming fights. Purchase tickets.
Tell me what to say.
Check out their
Normally that would help the actual going to the break would be, I'll start throwing up the music then.
Okay.
At the best venues. Stay connected and feel the power.
Yeah, do that. That'd be awesome.
MMA.com. Root for the class in combat sports.
You're listening to 990WBOB.com.
I don't know what's in there.
Welcome back to Demand the Truth alongside, as always, Kevin LaPrada. I'm Will Turbit. Make sure you follow Kevin at InfoWarrior4God. Kevin has one of the weirdest Twitters. He's literally followed by Karl Rove. If I was followed by Karl Rove, I would quit the internet. I would retire. I mean, I like to stand up to these guys, but that's pretty creepy. Karl Rove's following you among some other people. That's pretty creepy.
That's my boy.
Yeah, Karl Rove's a good dude. His nickname apparently is Turd Blossom. Legit. His nickname is Turd Blossom. That's what they called him in college. So getting back to, before the break, I was talking about Operation Paperclip, and I was alluding to Captain America. So anybody that saw the last Captain America, not the last one, I believe it was Civil War, but the one before that, where there's one scene where him and Scarlett Johansson are led into this subterranean World War II type basement area where there's a whole bunch of like 1950s computers. And a disembodied Nazi scientist appears on the screen and says, "Oh, we've been waiting to catch you. And this is what happened." And so the evil Nazi scientist, the disembodied spirit of a Nazi scientist that's taken life in these computers, tells Captain America that this is what happened. America was a country that was built on freedoms and the Bill of Rights, and it wasn't oppressive, and there was no socialism. And, you know, America was a great place. But do we have a lot of bad stuff? Yes. But what happened after World War II, this thing called Operation Paperclip. This thing called Operation Paperclip is actually true, but listen to the Captain America metaphor. So, Operation Paperclip, after World War II, this is, Google this right now, don't take my word for it, Operation Paperclip, also known as the Rat Line, is after World War II, Nazi scientists and all sorts of Nazis we took.
Doctors,
rocket experts, even NASA was created by Wernher von Braun. He had nothing to do with American ingenuity. So in 1947, we took, instead of prosecuting these Nazis for war criminals, we said, "Hey, come over here. We got some stuff for you to do."
we got room for you guys.
Yeah, don't worry about all those Jews you killed. Who cares? Come over here and take over the country illegally. So what happens is, so the whole point of now, like in my personal opinion, America is a great country, and it's great that I can even speak out about America sitting here. However, we have a lot of problems, and that's exactly why I'm here too. By no means is this perfect, but what happened is, at least like other countries, at least when we started, we were like kings and queens. And the whole idea is Congress does everything right in front of you, and they talk right in front of you. So the CIA itself, I'll talk about, this is also a CIA program, is Operation Mockingbird. Operation Mockingbird is a different type of program, and it goes back to earlier what I was talking about with Edward Bernays, with the brain control and the mind washing, if you will. And what would happen is Operation Mockingbird spent over $1 billion worth of today's money to buy up journalists and people throughout the news to control what Americans thought. It's not bad enough that they had 5 corporations, or at that time 3 corporations, running everything that we did, but they created this thing called Operation Mockingbird to basically parrot the talking points, if you will, of the CIA. And it was a secret program designed to illegally take over the media. And it started in the 50s, and it was run by the New York Times, Newsweek, CBS, over 25 newspapers and agencies, and most of these people were heads of the Council on Foreign Relations, or the heads of the companies were heads of the Council on Foreign Relations. And Thomas Braden, the head of the International Organizations Division, played an important role in Operation Mockingbird. Many years later, he revealed his role in these events. And this is what he would say about Operation Mockingbird. He said, if the director of the CIA wanted to extend a present, say, to someone in Europe, a labor leader, suppose he just thought, this man could use $50,000. And at that time, it's a lot of money. He's working well and doing a good job. He could just hand it to him and never have to account to anybody. There was simply no limit to the money it could spend, and no limit to the people it could hire, and no limit to the activities it could decide were necessary to conduct the war. The secret war. It was multinational. Maybe it was one of the first. Journalists were a target. Labor unions a particular target. That was one of the activities in which the communists spent the most money. And the funny thing about it is, he's saying there was no limit to the money, no limit to the people he could hire. This is my money, okay? This is Kev's money. This is your money. They're spending our money to brainwash us. They're spending our money to take this free press that we have, quote unquote, free press we have in the United States, to use it against us. And now this is a pretty astounding quote from the former CIA director, William Colby. He says, the CIA owns everyone of any significance in the major media. He says the CIA owns anyone of any significance in the major media. That's the former CIA director admitting it. He was also the CIA director when MKUltra was going on. And some people like to get their news from CNN nowadays, and that's great. And you can watch Anderson Cooper. And Anderson Cooper is admittedly CIA, okay? And now in 2013, here's an article right here. It's businessinsider.com/NDAA legalizes propaganda. That's actually 2012. Wow. 2012/5. So the National Defense Authority, what's the NDAA stand for again?
Yeah, you have National Defense Authorization
Act. Sorry, yeah, thank you. The National Defense Authorization Act is another one of those things like the Patriot Act that basically subverts the Constitution and Bill of Rights, takes our freedom, allows the government to spy on us, allows people to be taken without a lawyer or a phone call and just tortured or executed anywhere. One of the things that happened during the passage of the NDAA was that the CIA, which is forbidden to operate domestically, the FBI is allowed to operate domestically and take care of the stuff that happens here. The CIA, by its own basis, is not allowed to operate in the United States, only foreign. But now we have Business Insider, as well as many other publications. You guys can just type in CIA legalizes propaganda, and the CIA can now take our tax money. Now it's legally. Before they would try to hide it, but now we're just so stupid and don't care, they're just throwing it in our face. So that's basically what's been going on. And now, after this next break, we're going to come full circle. We're going to go finish it up with the Trilateral Commission. We're going to bring it all back to present day times. And then we're going to hopefully get to some calls in the last stretch here. So thank you guys for listening. We got a couple more segments to go. This is 990WBOB.com. Alongside Kevin LaPrade, I am Will Turbit. Demand the truth. Thank you very much. Hold on tight.
Here your host, Scott Rotundo, asks the hard-hitting questions. How you doing tonight? Engage in spirited debates. Now, what's your favorite kind of wings? I'm more of like a Buffalo fan. Tackling the important issues of the day. I was reading in the Projo about you that it says you're a wing-eating champion. That's the Rotunda. Every Monday on 990WVOB.com. We're going to have to put that on the list, man.
Number 4 too. They won't. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Okay.
I mean.
Yep.
Don't even. Oh, just the next time.
Okay. Yeah. You're right. I'll have to spell it out. Yeah. Obviously.
You know Al Capone had syphilis when he died? I didn't know that.
I laugh every time I hear that commercial.
You should meet them.
I intend on it. I'm supposedly supposed to go on the wild side with Clyde one of these days. He said next time I have a chance to counterbuild each other's audiences, we should do it. So.
All their like dummies do is talk about music, crappy politics. Well, they're against politics, some stuff. They talk about the Oscars. They basically just sit around and smoke weed for an hour.
That's pretty cool.
That's cool. So you can smoke up here. I thought you could.
No cigarettes, just ganja.
Check out econilelectrical.net, leading the trade in quality workmanship.
That's all they do.
Contractors. No job is too big or too small. Call today for a free estimate. 401-297-1844. Improve or upgrade the electrical work in your home or business safely, affordably, and as always, your satisfaction is guaranteed. Econ Electrical Contractors. 401-297-1844.
This presentation is WVOB.com.
I'm not doing it.
Traveling made easy. DelicateTravel.com. Your source for sports. Gulliver'sGazette.com. The East Bay's Auto Store. King Philip Motors. And by Foolproof Brewing. For more info on 990WVOB.com or its supporters, please visit our contact page.
990WVOB.com.
And welcome back once more. I'm going to plug that song, by the way. That's a very little heard song. It's our theme song. It's Rashad in Confidence, Rumors of War. It's a really dope song. It's got samples with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X at the beginning. It's actually pretty applicable to what we're doing here. That's why I chose it. And at first I was like, I should have something kind of like welcome and be some kind of serious news stuff. But you know what? Hip-hop, good hip-hop, and real good hip-hop kind of inspired me to do this. You know, they were anti-system, and then that even kind of that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But there still is good hip-hop, and hip-hop in general inspired me to question the system and fight the system. So that's why I decided on that song. But now in this segment, what I'm going to do, Kev, is last week I proved to you that there is a conspiracy called the Bilderberg Group, and it actually really happens. And so even if they wanted to call us conspiracy theorists, which is another term coined by the CIA to discredit people that believed that the Warren Commission was a crock of crap, so it doesn't make a difference. So now I'm going to prove to you that every single president since before 1976 has had a direct hand on him by David Rockefeller. I'm not even talking about this whole group, just David Rockefeller, okay? And I'm going to talk about this group. It was created by David Rockefeller and his boy, Zbigniew Brzezinski. It was created in 1973. It's called the Trilateral Commission. It's an official group. You can go out, check out their website. Just Google them. And the objective of this group, when they created in 1973, was to create a new economic international order. Okay? You keep hearing that phrase over and over again. I could literally spend 2 hours worth of shows just playing different clips from world leaders all over the world, just calling for a new world order. It's not just Bush or Hitler or Bill Clinton.
George Soros.
I mean,
Rockefellers,
literally.
Rothschilds.
There's documentaries out there, and it's basically just no narration, nothing. It's just like an hour and 45 minutes of people calling for a new world order. So I suggest you look into it. It's not just a fringe conspiracy theory. These things are actual quotes and actual things that these people have talked about for over 100 years. Okay, so the Trilateral Commission, though, was originally formed by an 180-member body comprised of elite public citizens from the U.S., Europe, and Japan, hence the Trilateral, with the 3 locations. And these members come from positions of power and influence in international banking, the media, government, and multinational corporations. And I've already told you about David Rockefeller's quote twice now about how he admits that he wants to destroy America. The co-founder of the Trilateral Commission is this dude, Zbigniew Brzezinski. And listen to this quote from his 1972 book called Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era, when he boldly states, and I quote, "The nation state, as a fundamental unit of man's organized life, has ceased to be the principal creative force. International banks and multinational corporations are acting and planning in terms that are far in advance of the political concepts of the nation state." He would also go on to say in the same book, "The technotronic era, which is the era we're living in now," that's why I'm giving you the history of this, and we're just about, after this segment, we're going to finally be back up to modern day history, and then we can have a good time after this. But in the same book he says, the technotronic era involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Such a society would be dominated by elite, unrestrained by traditional values. Gonna read this quote again, okay? So Rockefeller in his book admits he wants to destroy America, and the co-founder Zbigniew Brzezinski in his book, and he's written multiple books, but this is just one excerpt. I mean, I could literally go on all day, but I'm just trying to give you some so you guys get an idea of this. He says, the technotronic era, which is the era we're living in, involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Such a society would be dominated by elites, unrestrained by traditional values. Wow, I do not, it looks like we're starting to get there, unfortunately, but that's a sad and scary statement for someone to boldly say, because these people think that we're so stupid, and because of the brainwashing and the fluoride in the water and the genetically modified foods and the aluminum in the deodorant and the vaccines and the chemtrails and all that.
So basically we mostly are.
We basically are brainwashed, so I get it, but it's just crazy. These people think they'll throw it right in your face. All right, so I'm going to give you, like I said at the start of this break, I said, I'm going to prove to you that every president since the 70s has been controlled by Rockefeller, okay? So first, let's start with Nixon. Nixon was a crook. He steps down. Gerald Ford, boom, he takes the throne. Then he names his own vice president, Nelson Rockefeller, David's brother, governor of New York. So we got a Rockefeller in the White House then. This group was created in 1973. The election 3 years later of 1976 was the election of relatively unknown at that time, Jimmy Carter. He was a Trilateral Commission member, and he also got 11 members of the Trilateral Commission in the White House. All right, fast forward to 1980. We have running for president, J.B. Anderson, Jimmy Carter, George Bush, and Ronald Reagan. The only member of that group that was not a Trilateral Commission member was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, at the primary in 1980, says, I would never take George Bush as my running mate. He's a Council on Foreign Relations, Skull and Bones member, CIA guy. Oh, he's a trifecta. I would never take him. It's a contested convention. He actually does end up taking Bush. A month or two later, Reagan gets shot. And fast forward to 1984, Reagan has a luncheon for the Trilateral Commission at the White House. Fast forward to 1988, you have George Bush, Trilateral Commission. Fast forward to the election of 1992, we got a whole bunch of new change and different people in here. We got Bush versus Clinton. Trilateral Commission versus Trilateral Commission, run by David Rockefeller, who says he hates America. Who do you want to pick? Oh, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton wins. Fast forward to 2000. Then you got Bush versus Gore. And Bush, too stupid to be in Trilateral Commission, but Cheney was running the show. He was Council on Foreign Relations. He was actually head of the Council on Foreign Relations. The Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission, the groups kind of interlock. They're run by the same people. There's a large amount of overlap there. Cheney himself was also a Trilateral Commission member. Then his opponent, Al Gore, the liberal, awesome guy that's going to save us from everything, is a Trilateral Commission member. Fast forward to 2004, you got Kerry Trilateral Commission. Bush was not again, but throw the Trilateral Commission out the door. They're both members of the Skull and Bones Society at Yale University, where they do some pretty disturbing things, and we'll delve into that on another day for sure. Then you fast forward to 2008. Finally, we got change. We got a black man. We got an outsider. We got someone that's going to come in here and change things and stir things up. Guess who Obama's main policy advisor, running president and up to the beginning of his campaign was? Zbigniew Brzezinski, co-founder of the Trilateral Commission. Okay, so we think we have freedom of choice. We think we can choose people here in America. No, we can't. David Rockefeller, George Soros, and the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group, do that, and they take our freedoms away at the same time. So we can't sit there and let this happen anymore. These people are openly saying it to us, okay? So, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little flustered. So, here's Richard Gardner. He was a Trilateral Commission member, and he was the author of the 1974 book, Hard Road to World Order. You hear that again, Hard Road to World Order. Richard Gardner was also, like I said, there's a great amount of overlap with the Trilateral and Council on Foreign Relations. He was a member of both. He suggested an end run around national sovereignty, eroding it piece by piece. All right, and some other people, like I said, Walter Mondale, and also Jimmy Carter. He was the first Trilateral Commission president. When he got in, he created a new position, the U.S. Trade Representative. Since it was created, 8 of the 10 have been members of the commission, and that's not all. 6 of the last 7 heads of the World Bank have been Trilateral Commission members. This is pretty good evidence, in my opinion, saying that they have taken complete control of the economic situation in the U.S. and abroad, as well as the fact that the people that are responsible for printing our money, the Federal Reserve, and we're going to do a whole show on the Federal Reserve, have been members of the Trilateral Commission. And now, a former presidential candidate himself, and somebody in the 60s and the 70s who was a pretty legit dude. I mean, there's some criticisms about him, but Barry Goldwater kind of told it like it was. And this is a quote from his book, and it's about the Trilateral Commission. This is what he says about the Trilateral Commission. He says, the Trilateral Commission is international and is intended to be the vehicle for multinational consolidation of the commercial and banking interests by seizing control of the political government of the United States. The Trilateral Commission represents a skillful, coordinated effort to seize control and consolidate the 4 centers of power: political, monetary, intellectual, and ecclesiastical. That's exactly what I've been telling you guys all this show and last show, okay? And now that the Obama years have begun, like I said, Zbigniew Brzezinski, creator of the Trilateral Commission, was Obama's main foreign policy advisor up until the entire point. And Obama, when he got in, already named 10 Trilateral Commission members as his advisors, including Timothy Geithner, Susan Rice, Paul Volcker, and Richard Haas. And Richard Haas was, like I said, a great amount of overlap. He is the head of the Council on Foreign Relations to this day. Okay? And even alone from Brzezinski mentoring him recently, co-founder of the Trilateral Commission, Zbigniew Brzezinski, was his mentor all the way back at Columbia University. And during the 70s, Brzezinski also worked for the Carter administration. And he was responsible, don't take my word for it, there's clips of him admitting, saying he'd do it again. There's clips of Hillary Clinton, Ronald Reagan, left, right, center. They all admit during that time we created the Al-Qaeda, or as it was called at that time, the Mujahideen, to fight the Russians in Afghanistan. And even Ronald Reagan, there's video clips of him saying that they were freedom fighters. Now, Henry Kissinger, who's also like best friends with David Rockefeller, Council on Foreign Relations Trilateral member, he was speaking about Obama once Obama got elected, and he said this about Obama. He said, his task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period, when really a new world order can be created. I mean, these guys are just telling you, we're going to take over the world. We're going to take over the world. And now, before I get into the last couple segments here, I'm going to give you a couple more. These are just some random quotes. These are random quotes that will kind of blow your mind about who's really running things, and they're from very famous, influential people. And then after those quotes, I'm going to quickly go into quotes about being positive and what we can do to change this and about taking action. Before I get into these quotes, though, I want to open up the phone lines. And the phone number to call, if you're interested, is area code 401-626-4665. I'm going to take calls in the last segment. That's after the next break. And that phone number again is 401-626-4665. And you can also tweet at Kevin some questions. His Twitter handle is at InfoWarrior, 4 God. So it's INFO Warrior, 4 God. So you have any questions, call in the next segment. You can start calling in now. We're going to take your questions. But also before that, we're going to go and have a couple quotes about these people from their own mind and on their own words. All right. Benjamin Disraeli says, the world is governed by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. And also in the House of Commons, Benjamin Disraeli would say this: there is in Italy a power which we seldom mention in this House. I mean the great secret societies. It is useless to deny, because it is impossible to conceal, that a great part of Europe, the whole of Italy and France and a great portion of Germany, to say nothing of other countries, is covered with a network of these secret societies. Just as the superficie of the earth is now being covered with railroads, and what are their objects? Do they not attempt to conceal them? They do not want constitutional government. They do not want ameliorated institutions. They want to change the tenure of land, to drive out the present owners of the soil and put an end to the ecclesiastical establishments. Some of them may go further. Here's a quote from Mikhail Gorbachev, former leader of Russia, the USSR at that time. Further world progress is now possible only through the search of a consensus for all mankind in a movement towards a new world order. Now, J. Edgar Hoover, this is a quote from J. Edgar Hoover, former original head of the FBI, he says this about this group of individuals. He says, "The individual is handicapped by coming face to face with a conspiracy so monstrous he cannot believe it exists. The American mind simply has not come to a realization of the evil that has been introduced into our midst. It rejects even the assumption that human creatures could expose a philosophy which must ultimately destroy all that is good and decent." And here's another quote about the Rockefeller family. Now, this is from Congressman Larry McDonald, and I'm going to say the quote, and I'm going to tell you what happened to the guy, okay? He said, "The drive of the Rockefellers and their allies is to create a one-world government combining supercapitalism and communism, all under the same tent, all under the same control. They also finance communism." Take a look at a couple books, Wall Street and the Rise of Hitler, Wall Street and the Rise of the Bolsheviks, Wall Street and the Rise of Communism, by Anthony Sutton, who was a scholar, not a fringe guy by any stretch of the imagination. Take a look at those books. And he says, "Do I mean conspiracy? Yes, I do. I'm convinced there is such a plot, international in scope, generations in old planning, and incredibly evil in intent." That was Congressman Larry McDonald, who was killed in Korean Airlines 747 that was shot down by the Soviets, supposedly. And now, this is a pretty well-respected guy. He's a guy that put the all-seeing eye in the back of the dollar bill, one of the longest president in American history, Franklin Roosevelt. FDR says, "The real truth of the matter is, as you and I know, that a financial element in the larger centers has owned the government ever since the days of Andrew Jackson." Okay, here's Teddy Roosevelt, his cousin. This is what Teddy Roosevelt says about this group. He says, "Behind the ostensible government sits enthroned an invisible government, owing no allegiance and acknowledging no responsibility to the people. To destroy this invisible government, to befoul this unholy alliance between corrupt business and politics, is the first task of statesmanship." Okay, and Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson is a guy that was heavily into these people, hanging out with them. We're going to go to break. I'm going to come back with the rest of the quotes, and we're going to take your calls. Thank you very much. This is Demand the Truth. Kevin LaPrade alongside Will Turbit. We'll be right back. 990WBOB.com.
You guys sound really good.
That quote's finally coming up now.
You have that in there?
What? This one? No. If you want to Google that.
Yeah, my phone's watching.
Oh,
My
damn.
phone's watching.
Detailed profiles of CES MMA fighters. Catch up on past bouts. Read about upcoming fights. Purchase tickets. Even check out their lovely red card models and more.
Where did anybody tweet you? Any questions?
CES MMA. Featuring the best combatants at the best
Check.
levels. Stay connected and feel the power. CESMMA.com. Root class in combat sports. Take a look on your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. Here's a pair of overalls that overalls are not selling to anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't sat in your lap in months. You could have more stuff.
Can you ask her if you got any calls?
You really have both. See, stuff is
She'll
defined
let
as
us know, right?
household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? I think you're right. Is remember those jobs you were looking for?
They shouldn't be talking, they're not shocked.
And they're the stuff inside your stuff.
Like, who's bothering me?
No, I know.
I wasn't talking.
I know.
Our job is
It was
to
pretty
unlock
awesome.
those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs.
Where would I even
Isn't that
find
worth
someone
partying
like
with the
that?
leftover
We
guitar
got-
from the 80s
We got one,
Donate stuff to create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
This is Batman.
This is Superman.
So,
And Aquaman. And we're the Justice League.
When we're not out fighting crime, we're reading 13 Folds magazine. It's the definitive magazine.
Listen.
They take all of today's relevant.
I just want to make sure I can fill the last 15 minutes now because I thought I was going to maybe have some calls or whatever, but should be good.
At your local entertainment.
Or visit 13folds.com and read the digital version online.
They're gonna love it.
Up and away!
They've got a bar there.
Legs and Eggs. After almost 25 years of rocking your Friday mornings, the Foxy Ladies of Legs and Eggs feature the finest ladies, the hardest rock, and a complimentary 5-star breakfast buffet. It's no wonder Legs and Eggs continue to be a New England favorite. Stop by the world-famous Foxy Lady each and every Friday morning starting at 6 a.m. with a true breakfast of champions. Legs and Eggs. More information, check out foxy.com or call 401-221-9145. That's 401-221-9145.
You're listening to downloadwb.com, Renegade Radio.
Rustic meows.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us once again in the final segment here of Demand the Truth, our second episode with Kevin LaPrade. I'm Will Turbot. Right before the break, I started reading you guys some quotes from these individuals themselves and presidents like FDR about this group. So I wanted the first couple episodes to heavily document so that you guys didn't think I was coming out of left field with any of this stuff. I wanted to give you all the quotes and all the excerpts from the books right there so you guys can see it and look it up for yourselves. Now, this is just an overview. I mean, we could sit here for days about this. So do a little research yourself. The first step is you got to do a little research yourself. Don't take any of these astounding claims that I say and just believe them face value. You got to go and look and then do a little more. And then once we can get educated on this stuff and other topics, then we can start taking some peaceful action. So before the break, I was talking about Teddy Roosevelt's saying that there's an invisible government owing no allegiance or acknowledging no responsibility to the people. That was back in 1912. And here's Woodrow Wilson in 1913. 1 year later, Woodrow Wilson was the president that gave us probably the worst president of all time. He was a racist. He gave us the Federal Reserve. He gave us the income tax. He was basically a puppet for this group. He passed everything that he wanted to. The Federal Reserve Act was passed by a Rhode Island senator, Nelson Aldrich, who actually married into the Rockefeller family. But like I said, the Federal Reserve is a topic that we'll definitely get into another day. And one of the quotes that Kev's given me right here before I continue with my own quotes, it's a quote from George Soros. And George Soros is kind of like the new David Rockefeller. David Rockefeller is now over 100 years old. By some accounts, he's had multiple heart transplants. I don't know if any of that's true. But you'd have to check it out. Either way, he's over 100 years old. He's still kicking. But there's other people that run things now. The new group is George.
Hasn't he had 6 heart transplants?
Supposedly. I couldn't find anything to verify that. I'm sure the Rockefellers aren't putting their medical history out for people to see. But it could be something to that effect. Either way, he's an old dude, but he's still kicking. One of the major progenitors of this conspiracy to this day is George Soros. Here's a quote Kev just gave me from George Soros. I heard, but I can't quote it to you exactly. But here it is right here, the exact quote. I carried some rather potent messianic fantasies with me from childhood, which I felt had to control, otherwise may they get me into trouble. So basically, George Soros has admitted a few other times that he wants to be God. Here's another quote, right? He says, this is Obama's boss, too. I mean, basically anything that Soros says, Obama does, okay? I mean...
Obama/Hillary.
Obama/Hillary. He's more of the liberal wing of this. I mean, although he does support some conservative things, too, he's more of the liberal. He's like the left Twix of the both bad Twix, you know. I mean, it's two wings of the same bird of prey coming to snatch you, whether Democrat or Republican, both run by the same corporations and mega banks on record. That's why even now with a sellout like Gary Johnson, who supports the TPP, they still won't let him debate because these corporations that run America and these people that run these corporations don't want you to hear another side of the story. That's why they run media, and that's why they do everything else that they do, and I've been documenting. And Soros' autobiography says, "Yet, what is one to make of a child who believed he was God?" And he basically goes on page 15 and he says, "Yet as an adult, he offered no sign, no dismissive gesture, no footnote signifying no longer clung such a wild convictions, but only the suggestion of how difficult it would be for someone to believe himself a deity." So Soros is struggling with the fact that, oh my God, I'm God. Oh my me, I'm a God.
I'm a God on earth. What am I going to do with myself?
Let's finance torture and wars and overthrow governments. So getting back to Woodrow Wilson, talking about this group, he says, "Since I entered politics, I have chiefly had men's views confided to me privately. Some of the biggest men in the United States, in the field of commerce and manufacture, are afraid of somebody, are afraid of something. They know there is a power somewhere so organized, so subtle, so watchful, so interlocked, so complete, so pervasive, that they better not speak above their breath when they speak in condemnation of it."
Wow.
That's ridiculous. Oh my goodness. That's just such a ridiculous quote. And now this is a quote that Kev's been begging me to get to since the last show.
Finally.
And this is James Paul Warburg. Remember all these same groups: Federal Reserve, Council on Foreign Relations. He's a big central banker. And he says, "Oh, I'm two. I don't know which one you wanted me to get to, but I'm going to say them both."
Warburg and Rothschild.
Warburg and Rothschild.
Okay.
So Warburg says, and this wasn't just a quote that someone may have overheard him say. This is in the congressional record. He says, "We shall have world government, whether or not we like it. The only question is whether the world government will be achieved by conquest or consent." So, are we going to allow them to take over our country and destroy it, or is it going to be on conquest? Well, let's hope neither. And here's the quote that Kev's been waiting for this whole time. It's Mayer Amschel Rothschild, and I was detailing how these guys are the richest family, the Rothschild, the richest family on the history of the earth, debatably. He says, "Give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes her laws." So these guys are printing money out of thin air and have been for over 100 years. They run everything. But now is the time that we start to take it back peacefully. The first thing you guys can do today is educate yourselves and then educate somebody else. What I used to do, I used to work at a job where there was a high amount of turnover. So people get fired and hired all the time. We had hundreds of people working there. And I started working. You know, it's probably they don't want you doing this at work. But I was like, I'm going to talk to every person I know about a simple topic that's provable and that they can go home and verify for themselves. But it's also shocking, So I would do that. And if you tell these people, sooner or later, the amount of people that become awake is going to bust open the dam. Imagine if enough people found out in the world that our income tax is illegal, it's a fraud. And imagine if we just stopped because if one or two people stop paying their income tax, they'll lock you up, they get guys with guns after you, they'll destroy your life. But imagine if we had enough people just in Rhode Island to say, the income tax is illegal, it's fraudulent, it's unconstitutional, and guess what? We're not paying it. What are they going to do then? Can they send guns and men with guns to all of our houses? I hope not. I don't think that's possible. All right, ending the show tonight. Next week we're gonna have our first ever guest, and we're gonna take some calls next week. But I want to end on some quotes, some positive quotes, because the last show or two, I've been focusing on the problems, and that's what I said I would do. Focus on the problems. Going forward from here out, we're going to be focusing on, some of the problems, but mainly the solutions. How can we overcome this? What can we do to change these things? Because I'm not over here talking because I like the sound of my own voice. I could do that at home. I could be out, trying to get a girl or play some video games or watch football or doing anything but doing this. Trust me, I didn't want to be doing this. If it was up to me, I would have loved to get involved in anything but this. I would love to be at home watching sports with my friends. I'd love to travel. But I think it's a priority. I can't enjoy things while other people are messed up. And I'm going to give you a couple quotes here from some positive people to hopefully uplift you guys and make you think about things in a different perspective. Here's a quote from Thomas Jefferson. He says, "Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty." So in order to be free, We have to be informed. We can't, if these people are stealing and murdering and raping on our tax dollar and we don't even know about it, it's like cancer, okay? People will say, oh, well, you're negative. You're saying all these negative things. Well, if your house is burning down next door and I'm your neighbor and I'm like, oh my God, holy crap, your house is burning down. Get the heck out of the house right now. Is that fear-mongering? Is that a bad thing? No, that's the truth. Get out of your house right now. Same thing with cancer. You can't know you have a problem until the doctor tells you. You gotta know you have a problem to fight it. Unfortunately, I'm out of time yet again. I'm gonna read one more quote before we leave. Martin Luther King Jr., injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And as long as there's people that are messed up and starving and being depleted by our government, we have to be the people to stand up and raise our hands peacefully against it. Thank you guys for listening to Demand the Truth. Always, thank you very much, Kevin. I am Will Turbot, Kevin LaPrade, 990WBOB.com. Catch you guys next Monday at 7 p.m. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you guys very much for watching and spreading the information. I appreciate it. Love you guys.
Yeah.